From hidden prop men in the bushes to a paralyzed barber working through a stroke, the wholesome world of Mayberry concealed secrets that would shock even its most devoted fans. Behind that famous whistled theme song lurked bulletproof vests stuffed with fan mail, improvised filler scenes, and a beloved actor who couldn't even read his own lines. Fact 1. The Hidden Rock Thrower. That iconic moment in the opening credits where young Opie tosses a rock into the lake wasn't quite what it seemed. 6-year-old Ron Howard simply didn't have the arm strength to throw a stone far enough to actually reach the water, no matter how many takes they filmed. The production team came up with a clever workaround that fooled audiences for decades. They positioned a prop man in the bushes just out of frame, and when the cameras rolled, Ron would wind up and fake the throwing motion while the hidden crew member launched the real rock at exactly the right moment. The timing had to be perfect to make it look like the stone was actually leaving Opie's hand, and somehow they pulled it off so seamlessly that most viewers never questioned it. This little bit of television magic became one of the most recognized opening sequences in TV history, watched by millions of families every week, and nobody suspected that the wholesome small-town boy couldn't actually complete the throw himself. It wasn't until years later, when Ron Howard shared behind-the-scenes stories from his childhood acting days, that this secret finally came to light and fans learned the truth about what really happened during those lakeside opening credits. Fact 2. Floyd's secret support system. Howard McNear's dedication to playing Floyd the barber went far beyond what most actors would endure. In 1963, while the show was at the height of its popularity, McNear suffered a massive stroke that left the entire left side of his body paralyzed. Most people assumed his career was over, but McNear was determined to return to Mayberry. The production team wanted him back too, so they worked together to make it possible despite his severe physical limitations. The crew built a special wooden stand that McNear could lean against while filming, which held him upright and gave the appearance that he was standing normally in the barber shop. If you watch his later episodes carefully, you'll notice that his left hand is always strategically hidden behind a newspaper, tucked in a pocket, or simply kept out of frame entirely. The camera angles were adjusted to disguise his condition, and other actors positioned themselves to help support him during scenes. McNear's speech was also affected by the stroke, giving Floyd an even more distinctive voice that actually added to the character's quirky charm. He continued playing Floyd for several more years until his health made it absolutely impossible to continue, showing remarkable courage and commitment to a role that meant everything to him and to the fans, who loved the bumbling barber. Fact 3. Barney's bullet-filled mailbox. The running gag about Barney Fife being allowed to carry only one bullet, which he kept in his shirt pocket, resonated with viewers in an unexpected way. Fans across America felt so sympathetic to Deputy Fife's predicament that they started mailing real ammunition to Don Knotts at the studio. At first, it was just a few bullets here and there, but it quickly turned into a flood of live rounds arriving in envelopes and packages from every corner of the country. People wanted to make sure Barney had backup ammunition in case of emergency, completely missing the point that it was a comedy show. The studio had to deal with the somewhat alarming situation of receiving actual weapons-grade ammunition through the mail on a regular basis. Even more surprisingly, police officers who recognized Knotts at public appearances and autograph sessions would walk up and hand him bullets in person, usually with a wink and a comment about helping Barney out. Knotts found the whole thing funny and understood that fans meant well, but it did create an unusual problem that the show's producers never anticipated when they wrote that particular character trait. The one-bullet rule was meant to highlight Barney's incompetence and Andy's lack of trust in his deputy's judgment, but instead it sparked a nationwide movement to arm the fictional deputy with enough ammunition to fight a small war. Fact 4. Ron Howard couldn't read his scripts. When Ron Howard was cast as Opie Taylor at just 5 years old, he brought natural talent and charisma to the role. But he had one significant limitation that nobody watching the show would have guessed. The young actor couldn't read yet, which meant he couldn't study his scripts like the adult actors did. Instead of waiting until Ron learned to read, or hiring someone else, the production adapted to his needs in a way that actually strengthened his performance. His father, Rance Howard, who was also an actor, would sit with Ron before each day of filming and read all of Opie's lines out loud repeatedly until his son had them completely memorized. This method meant Ron was learning his dialogue by ear, which actually made his delivery sound more natural and childlike rather than like a kid reciting memorized lines from a page. Ron did learn one form of writing during his time on the show, but it wasn't for reading scripts. He learned cursive handwriting specifically so he could sign autographs for the fans who wanted Opie's signature, making it one of the most practical reasons a child ever learned penmanship. This behind-the-scenes reality shows how much support and accommodation went into making Ron's performance seem so effortless, and it's a testament to both his natural ability and his father's patient coaching that viewers never suspected the young star was essentially performing his entire role from memory without ever reading a word. Fact 5. Improvised scenes. To fill time, television production in the early 1960s operated on tight schedules with very little room for error, and the Andy Griffith Show was no exception. Episodes needed to hit an exact runtime to fit the broadcasting schedule, and sometimes the production team would realize late in the week that an episode was running short. Rather than scrambling to write and film entirely new scenes, Andy Griffith and Don Knotts developed a reliable solution that actually became one of the show's most beloved elements. On Wednesday nights, when final cuts were being assembled, if an episode needed a few extra minutes, the two actors would sit down on the front porch set and simply start talking to each other in character. These weren't carefully scripted conversations with jokes written by the show's writers. They were genuine improvised moments where Andy and Don would riff on whatever came to mind, staying true to their characters while letting the dialogue flow naturally. Those slow, rambling conversations between Andy and Barney, where they'd discuss nothing in particular while sitting in rocking chairs, were often the product of these last-minute padding sessions. The amazing thing is that these improvised moments didn't feel like filler at all. They captured the relaxed, easygoing pace of small-town life and gave the show much of its distinctive charm. Fans loved these quiet scenes as much as the plot-driven episodes, never realizing they were watching two talented actors making up dialogue on the spot to solve a production problem that had nothing to do with creative vision. Fact 6. Mayberry was built on Atlanta's ashes. The idyllic town of Mayberry, with its courthouse, Main Street, and cozy neighborhoods, existed on a piece of Hollywood real estate that had a much more dramatic history than most viewers ever imagined. The outdoor set, known as the 40 Acres Backlot, where virtually all of Mayberry's exterior scenes were filmed, was the exact same location that had been used more than 2 decades earlier for one of cinema's most famous sequences. In 1939, this backlot was dressed up as Atlanta, Georgia, and then deliberately set ablaze for the burning of Atlanta scene in Gone with the Wind, one of the most expensive and spectacular shots ever filmed at the time. Some of the original structures that survived that controlled Inferno were still standing when the Andy Griffith Show began production in 1960, meaning Mayberry was quite literally built on the remnants of a cinematic civil war. The same streets that Scarlett O'Hara fled through while Atlanta burned around her later became the peaceful avenues where Andy and Barney walked their beats. This backlot had been redressed and reused for countless productions over the years, but the connection between Gone with the Wind's destruction and Mayberry's tranquility represents one of Hollywood's most ironic transformations. The 40 Acres backlot has since been demolished and turned into a modern development, so both Atlanta and Mayberry now exist only in the films and television shows that preserved them. Fact 7. The Silent Darling brothers were rock stars. The Darling family episodes featured some of the most memorable guest characters in the entire series, particularly the 4 silent sons who never spoke a word but could play bluegrass music like nobody's business. What most viewers didn't realize at the time was that these weren't actors pretending to play instruments. They were members of the Dillards, a legitimate professional bluegrass band that was already making waves in the music world. Rodney Dillard, Doug Dillard, Dean Webb, and Mitch Jane were the real deal, and their appearances on The Andy Griffith Show introduced their innovative sound to millions of television viewers who might never have discovered them otherwise. The Dillards went on to have a significant impact on popular music that extended far beyond bluegrass. They toured internationally, sharing stages with major rock acts, including Elton John, and their progressive approach to bluegrass influenced musicians across multiple genres. John Paul Jones, who would later become famous as the bassist for Led Zeppelin, has cited the Dillards as a direct inspiration for his decision to incorporate mandolin into rock music. The band's television appearances as the Silent Darling Brothers were supposed to be just a few guest spots on a comedy show, but they ended up serving as a cultural bridge that brought traditional American folk music into mainstream consciousness during the folk revival of the 1960s, all while pretending to be a family of mountain musicians who couldn't be bothered to speak a single word. Fact 8. Andy's father's secret nod. The opening credits of The Andy Griffith Show contained a small gesture that held deeper meaning than anyone realized at the time, including Andy Griffith himself. As Andy and Opie walk toward the lake with their fishing poles, Andy gives young Ron Howard a distinctive approving nod, a simple head movement that became one of the sequence's most touching moments. Years after the show ended, Griffith was watching the opening credits again when something about that nod struck him as deeply familiar. He suddenly realized he was unconsciously imitating his own father's gesture, a specific way his dad would nod at him to show approval or affection when Andy was growing up. Griffith hadn't planned to replicate his father's mannerism. It simply emerged naturally during filming because it was so deeply ingrained in his memory from childhood. This accidental authenticity is part of what made the relationship between Andy and Opie feel so genuine and warm. The show was built on themes of fatherhood, mentorship, and the bonds between generations in a small town. And here was the lead actor unconsciously channeling his own father's love language into his performance without even realizing it. That spontaneous gesture connected 3 generations: Andy's father, Andy himself, and the character of Opie, creating a moment of genuine emotional truth that millions of viewers responded to, even though they had no idea they were witnessing something so personal and unscripted. Fact 9. Aunt Bee hated Andy. Behind the scenes of television's most wholesome family dynamic was a relationship that couldn't have been more different from what appeared on screen. Frances Bavier, who played the loving Aunt Bee, and Andy Griffith had a difficult working relationship that deteriorated into genuine animosity over the show's 8-year run. The tension between them was well known among the cast and crew, though they managed to maintain professionalism during filming. Bavier felt that Griffith was too controlling about the show's direction and didn't respect her input as an actress, while Griffith apparently found her difficult to work with and resistant to direction. After the show ended, Bavier moved to Siler City, North Carolina, and became increasingly reclusive. In 1972, when Andy Griffith and Ron Howard tried to visit her at her home, she turned them away at the door and refused to see them. The rejection was particularly painful for Ron Howard, who had always thought of her as a surrogate grandmother. Bavier lived alone for years, largely isolated from her former co-stars, until shortly before her death in 1989. As she was dying, she finally acknowledged that she had been difficult to work with and expressed regret about how she had treated people, including Griffith. It was a sad ending to a relationship that had brought so much fictional warmth into American homes, but had been marked by real coldness behind the cameras. Fact 10. Barney's constantly changing middle name continuity errors are common in long-running television series, but The Andy Griffith Show had one that was particularly odd, because it involved a main character's basic identity. Throughout the show's run, Barney Fife's middle name changed multiple times with no explanation or acknowledgement from the writers. In some episodes, he's referred to as Barney Milton Fife, giving him a perfectly respectable middle name. In other episodes, that changes to Barney Oliver Fife, a completely different name with no connection to Milton. To make things even more confusing, there are also instances where he's called Barney P. Fife, with just the initial and no full middle name provided, leaving viewers to wonder what the P stood for and why it kept changing. This wasn't a case of the character lying about his name or having some complicated backstory. It was simply the writers not keeping track of this detail across multiple seasons and different script authors. In an era before internet databases and fan wikis that documented every detail, these kinds of inconsistencies often went unnoticed by most viewers, and there was no easy way for writers to double-check previous episodes. The Barney middle name situation has since become a favorite piece of trivia among dedicated fans who have watched the entire series multiple times and noticed that even the show's most beloved character couldn't maintain a consistent identity on paper. Fact 11. The show ended at number 1. The Andy Griffith Show accomplished something extremely rare in television history by voluntarily ending its run while it was still the most watched show on American television. When the series finale aired in 1968, the show was ranked number 1 in the Nielsen ratings, meaning more people were watching The Andy Griffith Show than any other program on the air. Most television series end because ratings have declined and networks cancel them, or because production becomes too expensive to justify. But that wasn't the case here. Andy Griffith himself made the decision to end the show because he felt it had run its course creatively, and he wanted to pursue other projects while the show was still beloved rather than letting it decline in quality. This placed The Andy Griffith Show in incredibly exclusive company. Only 2 other television series in history have voluntarily ended while ranked number 1 in the ratings. Those shows were I Love Lucy, which ended its original run at the top in 1957, and Seinfeld, which would later make the same choice in 1998. All 3 shows understood that leaving audiences wanting more was better than overstaying their welcome. The decision to end proved wise, as The Andy Griffith Show has remained beloved in syndication for decades, never becoming tired or dated the way some long-running shows eventually do. Mayberry froze in time at the peak of its charm, ensuring that generations of viewers would discover it fresh and unspoiled by years of creative decline. Fact 12. Don Knotts' 5-year misunderstanding. One of the most significant changes in the Andy Griffith Show's history came from a simple miscommunication that altered the series forever. When the show began, Andy Griffith told Don Knotts that he only planned to do the series for 5 years, which was a standard contract length at the time. Knotts believed his friend and made plans accordingly, figuring he'd need to line up work for after the show ended in 1965. Based on that understanding, Knotts signed a 5-picture deal with Universal Pictures to make comedy films, a contract that would begin right when he thought The Andy Griffith Show would be finished. The problem was that Griffith changed his mind and decided to continue the show beyond season 5. But by that point, Knotts was legally obligated to Universal and couldn't get out of the film contract. If Knotts had known the show would continue, he would have stayed, but the timing of the movie deal made it impossible. This is why Barney Fife largely disappeared from the show after season 5, appearing only occasionally as a guest star when Knotts' film schedule allowed. The Andy Griffith Show continued for 3 more seasons without its most popular supporting character, and while it remained successful, many fans felt something essential was missing. Knotts did make his film comedies for Universal, including The Ghost and Mr. Chicken and The Reluctant Astronaut. But his absence from Mayberry was the result of a mistaken assumption about when his friend's television show would end, not any desire to leave the role that had made him famous. Fact 13. The mysterious Mr. Schwamp. Among the Andy Griffith Show's many recurring background players, one figure has puzzled fans and researchers more than any other. A middle-aged man wearing what was clearly an obvious toupee appeared repeatedly throughout the series in various crowd scenes and background shots, and he was identified in some production materials as Mr. Schwamp. He would show up in different episodes with no lines, just standing in town scenes, walking past the courthouse, or appearing in crowd gatherings, always with that same distinctive and not particularly convincing hairpiece. The strange part is that nobody seems to know who this person actually was. He wasn't credited in episodes, there are no interviews with him, and researchers who have tried to identify him by his real name have come up empty. He wasn't a major character actor whose face would be recognized from other shows, and he doesn't appear in cast photos or behind-the-scenes documentation in any significant way. The most likely explanation is that he was simply a local extra or someone connected to the production who was available to fill out crowd scenes whenever needed, but even that hasn't been confirmed. Fan communities have spent years trying to solve the mystery of Mr. Schwamp's true identity, going through old production records and trying to match his face to credited actors from the era, but he remains stubbornly anonymous. It's one of those small mysteries that probably doesn't matter in the grand scheme of television history, but it bothers dedicated fans who want to know everything about their favorite show and can't solve this one lingering puzzle about the man in the bad toupee. Fact 14. Real father-son dynamic. Inspired Opie. The relationship between Andy and Opie Taylor became a template for how television portrayed single fathers raising children, but it almost went in a completely different direction. In early script development, the writers planned to make Opie a typical wisecracking sitcom kid who would deliver clever one-liners and get into comic mischief, which was the standard formula for child characters in 1960s television. Rance Howard, Ron's father, saw these early scripts and had serious concerns about the direction. He approached Andy Griffith and argued strongly that Opie should be written as a respectful, well-mannered child instead of another smart-mouthed TV kid. Rance pointed to his own relationship with Ron as an example of how a loving father-son dynamic actually worked, emphasizing that respect and genuine affection were more interesting and meaningful than constant jokes and conflict. Griffith listened to Rance's perspective and agreed to change the approach, working with the writers to reshape Opie's character into someone who looked up to his father, learned lessons from him, and had a relationship built on mutual love rather than comic tension. This decision made The Andy Griffith Show stand out from other family sitcoms of its era and created scenes that resonated emotionally with viewers in ways that pure comedy couldn't. The fact that this wholesome dynamic was directly inspired by watching how Rance and Ron Howard actually interacted with each other adds another layer of authenticity to those touching father-son moments that defined so much of the show's heart. Fact 15. Floyd's calendar never changed. Dedicated fans who watched The Andy Griffith Show carefully over its 8-season run eventually noticed something odd about Floyd's barbershop that revealed just how much attention, or lack thereof, the prop department paid to small details. Hanging on the wall of the barbershop was a calendar that served as background decoration, and eagle-eyed viewers realized that this calendar never changed throughout the entire series. It was permanently stuck on the month of February, no matter what time of year the episode supposedly took place or when it actually aired. You could be watching a Christmas episode with snow on the ground, and that calendar would still show February. You could watch an episode about the hot summer months, and there's February again on Floyd's wall. The calendar remained frozen in the second month of the year from the show's beginning in 1960 through its final episode in 1968. This kind of continuity oversight was common in an era when most viewers only saw episodes once during their initial broadcast, and there was no easy way to go back and check previous episodes or freeze frame to examine background details. The prop department apparently put that calendar up on the first day of filming in Floyd's barbershop set and then never thought about it again, assuming nobody would notice or care. They were mostly right at the time, but decades later, when fans could watch episodes repeatedly on video and DVD, Floyd's eternally February calendar became one of the show's most famous unintentional quirks. Unintentional quirks. Unintentional quirks.